Hey everybody, welcome to True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters. I'm Christy Brower, here with my sister, co-host, and partner in crime, Katie Weaver. Hey Katie.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I don't know what to say. I'm fine.
Well,
I
good.
I've been in this slump of feeling like I can't get my brains together. I can't create anything. It's been bugging me, and I'm finally back to the office, the creation room.
Oh,
However
good.
you like that. One thing I've been trying to learn how to do is do paper cutting on my vinyl cutter. Which, if you guys have vinyl cutters, you're like, that's easy. It is if you have a Cricut. What I have is a commercial sign cutter, and it's not easy, but we figured it
Yeah.
out finally. And I've been having I've cut so much paper, it's just stupid. Like, what am I even going to do with all this paper? I don't know. But I made Valentines. I made super cute Valentines with it, and
Oh, fun.
I'm just working on I'm like a third grader right now with my glue stick. Just I'm cutting paper and making dioramas, and by God, because I can, I will. So
Right.
I'm fine.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it.
I need more paper. I mean, basically, that's where it's at.
Yes, yes. Send paper, friends. Send paper.
And paper.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you are getting creative. I am too. I started a podcast a while back and then kind of let it go, and I'm back at it. I have a podcast called The Podcast Starter. And it is because I have a coaching program where I actually teach people to be podcasters. If you want a podcast like we do, I have a program to teach you to do that. I can show you. So I just started podcasting again with that, and got a marketer friend on board helping me, which is so awesome. And I'm really feeling more inspired about that. I don't know. I think January is just a blah month, and I needed it to get into February and get out of the January energy.
Yeah.
So yeah, agreed. That's good. So I am more creative as well.
Yep.
Which
is very
nice.
Good.
Well, today, this is our second case of the week, and this is our group case. And so we're not doing a reading on this case. We're just going to present it. This is a case we have been asked repeatedly to do.
Yeah.
And so here you have it. This is the Elisa Lam case. Now, you very likely know the story. May have just watched the brand new Netflix doc that just dropped on it last week.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting stuff, but we've had a lot of people ask us to do this case and give our take on it. So we're going to do that today. So I'm going to start with the timeline and tell you a little bit about who Elisa was and what happened.
Yeah.
So Elisa Lam was a college student from Canada, and she got feeling kind of restless and decided to go on a little solo trip. Yeah. Elisa was very cute in that she had a Tumblr, and she used to use her Tumblr as her diary. And so she would post all of these things about how she was feeling and what was going on with her on her in her diary. And so parts of what we know about what happened to her come from her Tumblr.
Yeah.
So she was 21 years old, and she arrived at the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles on January 28th. I just lost the year. We'll find it. Sorry. Lost the year. Anyway, we'll get it.
2013.
2013. Okay. January 28th, 2013 is when she checks into the Cecil Hotel. Now, you need to know that the Cecil Hotel is in downtown Los Angeles in an area known as Skid Row.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very rough area. Mm-hmm. Lots of homeless encampments and drugs and violent crime. And even in the hotel rents to homeless people as well. Not that homeless people are violent. That's not what I'm saying. But there's a lot of crime around her. And a lot of it is crime of poverty. And that's what happens in Skid Row is crime of poverty. People stealing for food, selling drugs to eat, those kinds of things. But it's kind of a sketchy area. And she's this young, naive college student from Canada who, may not really know what she's getting into.
Right. But the Cecil Hotel was cheap.
Yeah. Yep. The Cecil was cheap. It's this huge hotel, 700 rooms in the Cecil Hotel. So it's pretty hard to keep track of everything that's going on in a hotel of 700 rooms.
Mhm.
Just ask
Well,
the
it seems as
manager.
though perhaps they didn't want to, you know, like, they
Yeah,
were averting their eyes to a lot of what was going
they
on in
were.
this
I
hotel.
don't know how you couldn't. I mean,
Yeah,
this area had 2 to 3 911 calls a day.
yeah,
So, I'm sure that they looked the other way on lots of things, or,
yeah,
likely it would get to the point where the police just would never come.
yeah.
They'd have, anyway. So that's where she was. So it was a little sketchy place. So she decides to, she's traveling through California. She's staying in the hostel part of the hotel.
Mhm,
And that part of the hotel is called Stay on Main. It's around the corner from the Cecil part of the hotel, but it's all the same building.
mhm,
Um, she was originally staying with some other women, but she was acting weird and making people uncomfortable. And so the hotel moved her to another room, so she was in a room by herself. So remember, she checked in on January 28th. She's last seen on January 31st. And this was the day before she was supposed to check out of the hotel
yeah,
and, move on from there. She visited a place called the Last Bookstore.
mhm,
And that's when no one sees her alive after that.
yeah,
So her family gets worried because she normally calls every day and checks in with them,
mhm,
and she hasn't checked in. So her parents call LAPD, and then they fly to Los Angeles because they know something's up.
mhm,
Now, here's something that you need to know. Elisa had bipolar disorder,
yeah,
and she had in the past had a history of bipolar disorder with psychotic features, which means having some psychosis, having some delusions and hallucinations as part of her illness.
mhm,
And so when they don't hear from her, they were checking in with her every day to make sure she was okay.
yeah.
I would bet a
It was
$1,000,000 that they really didn't want her to take this trip to begin with.
I was gonna say, I'll bet it was scary as hell for them,
Yeah,
for her to even take this trip at all. Yeah.
yeah. So they call LAPD and say something is very wrong. We are on our way. So they get LAPD comes to the hotel, and I mean you have to realize this hotel has 700 rooms.
Yeah.
So they're trying to search the hotel. They're trying to get the camera footage, which it turns out that their security system is real shitty and some of their cameras
Mhm.
don't work and some of them have been messed with and pointed the wrong way and all this stuff. So on February 6th, they hold a press conference saying that she's missing and her family is there, but they don't speak at the press conference. So finally, on February 13th, the police publish this really famous video that was captured on February 1st at like 12:30 in the morning ish. So this is truly the last time she was seen alive. This is after being seen at the Last Bookstore. So
Right.
we're gonna, without making any comment, we're gonna talk about it afterward. We are going to show you the video so that you can see what you think is happening here.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna hide Katie and I, and we are gonna play the video for you. Okay, let me get us back. There we go. Okay, so obviously this is also going to air on our podcast, so we need to describe what we just watched, and then we
Yeah.
can talk about what it was. So it is surveillance video from inside an elevator,
Mm-hmm.
and a woman in a red jacket and shorts and sandals comes into the elevator. She has dark hair, and she is identified as being Elisa Lam.
Yeah.
She comes in, and the first thing she does is she pushes all the buttons in the elevator. And then
Mm-hmm.
she stands there for a few minutes, and the elevator doors don't close.
Yeah.
Well, if you've been in an elevator, you know that there's a button you could push that holds the doors open.
Right.
So whether she's meant to do that or not, she's pushed the button that holds the doors open. So then she peeks out and looks up and down the hall, and then she comes back in, and then she squishes up in the corner by the door, and then she
Like
looks
she's
out and looks
hiding.
all around again. Yeah, like
Yeah.
she's hiding from someone. Although you never see anyone else. No one ever walks in front of the
Mhm.
elevator. You can see the hallway. You never
Yeah.
see anyone. So then she walks out of the elevator for a while, and she gestures kind of wildly at
Mm-hmm.
someone or someone she's seeing.
Yeah.
And then she comes back in the elevator and she pushes all the buttons again. And then she leaves the elevator, and that is the last time anyone sees her alive.
Yeah.
But the elevator doors finally close. But they're
Mm-hmm.
on it. There's some kind of a timer. You push that button, it holds the doors open for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
So I have to admit, because I'm a mental health social worker and I have worked with adults who have hallucinations, that it was my first thought that she was hallucinating.
Yeah.
Because I've seen people hallucinate before and it looks the same.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of people initially thought she's hiding from someone, she's scared of someone. Here's the thing. If there was
There's no one
actually
around.
someone there, why didn't she push the button to close the doors and ride the elevator to a different floor?
Right.
But she didn't. That never happens. And then
No.
she leaves the elevator and never comes back to it.
Mm-hmm.
They actually don't know what happened to her after that, because wherever else she went, the cameras weren't functioning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then this is when people got really, really worried. This clip went viral everywhere. You all have probably seen it. There was a lot of speculation. This is when the rumor mill about what happened to Elisa Lam really got a cranking. Some
Yeah.
people said that the video was doctored. It actually was intentionally. The date and time were covered because that was evidence that the police didn't want to share.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, the video isn't doctored, as far as anyone can tell. But people
Mm-hmm.
thought it was weird that the date and timestamp were garbled. But
Mm-hmm.
from what I understand from the documentary is that they did that on purpose because they didn't want anybody to know the exact date and time, because that's part of their investigation about what happened to her.
Yeah.
So 19 days go by, and in those 19 days, some things happen. They search everywhere in this hotel. They decide to search all the closets in the hotel. It's 600 closets. So the manager and other people who work for the hotel and the police are searching the hotel, and there's this huge group of police officers searching the hotel. They find nothing. They find nothing that belongs to her, no evidence of anything. I mean, they don't find a thing.
Yeah.
It's like she just vanished into thin air.
Yeah.
Some other big things happened in LA at that time that kind of pulled some of the police away at this point, because they just weren't finding anything. They weren't getting it. There was no indication of her ever leaving the hotel after that footage in the elevator, but they cannot find her anywhere in this building. But can you imagine how daunting that would be to try to find a single missing person in a building that big?
Yeah.
With all those hotel rooms and all of those people who could have done who knows what, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So then, unfortunately, on February 19th, Hotel guests start complaining about the water. The pressure is low, it tastes funny, it looks like it's dark and discolored.
Mhm.
So, because this hotel is so huge, it has these big water tanks on the roof. It has 4 of them.
Yeah.
So, a maintenance man is dispatched from the hotel to go up there and see what's going on. And when he gets to one of the hatches, the top is open. It has this big metal lid thing that fits down on the hatch. It's moved off from the hatch. And when he looks down in, he sees Elisa Lam's body floating in the water tank.
Yeah.
So, of course, the health department immediately places a do not drink order at the Cecil Hotel. People have been drinking and bathing in and brushing their teeth with this water for
weeks.
19 days.
Yep.
Yeah. Super duper yucky. This part
that horrifies me. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me very sick. So on June 20th of 2013, the coroner's office, they issue a finding of accidental drowning with her bipolar disorder as part of the cause.
Mm-hmm.
So her body was pretty decomposed by the time they found it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But they couldn't find any evidence that she'd been physically harmed.
Yeah.
They did do a toxicology, and what they found was that her bipolar medications were in her blood, but at too low of a level. So that meant she hadn't been taking them consistently and wasn't really getting, the
Right.
benefit from them.
Yeah.
It came out later also that, so her roommates in the hostel were freaked out by her.
Yeah.
She went and watched a live taping of a TV show. I don't know which one. She acted really weird there. And then she'd been acting really strange in the hotel itself, just around other, people who were staying there. And so she was known to the hotel staff fairly well as being acting strange.
Yeah.
They never did anything about it or checked in with her at all. But at one point, some hotel staff found her in an area of the hotel that was only for staff, because there were some questions about how did she get to the roof of the hotel?
Yeah.
How did she get up there? It's not like they wanted people getting up there.
No.
There are 2 theories. The one is, if you go up high enough in the elevator, there's a door that goes out onto the roof that was supposed to be locked, except guess what? It wasn't.
Yeah.
Lock was broken. So she could have just gone out that way.
Mm-hmm.
There's also this fire escape on the outside of the building, that there are doors at the end of every hall, or windows at the end of every hallway that lead out to it. And they found a couple that the windows had been lifted, that they wondered if maybe she climbed that way. I don't think they know for sure which way she did, but she clearly got up there by herself. There were lots of questions about, well, did someone dump her in here? How did she do this herself? Well, if you see, and I've got a picture up, and it's kind of hard to tell, of these water tanks. They're really, really big. Like, I don't know, what are they, like 20 feet tall or something? They're really big.
Yeah, they're huge.
And they have ladders up the sides of them. So if you kill someone, you then have to carry them all the way up that.
Right.
And then in order to dump them in the top, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you can access them by getting up on top of a little utility building thing that's on the roof and then jumping down onto them. But then there's also a ladder there that you would have to crawl up and carry. She weighed like 120 pounds. And so you're going to carry a 120-pound person. She didn't have any marks on her body to indicate that she had been, drug up a ladder or anything to indicate.
No.
There's just no way that a person could have done that themselves. The other thing is, so when they found her, she was naked and all of her clothes were in the water. So what the belief is that she climbed in there thinking she could hide from whoever was after her. Remember, she's in an altered state. She's not thinking clearly. She doesn't know she's not aware of the kind of danger she's just placed herself in. Also, water level in these tanks goes up and down based on use. And so when she first got in, it might have been clear up at the top where she could just reach up and pull herself back out. But if somebody, a bunch of people are using water, the water level drops. And then there's no way to get to the hatch.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, it is a phenomenon that when you're drowning, you have a tendency to think that if you take off whatever you're wearing, you won't be as heavy and you might be able to swim to the top, kind of. So they figured that that's what she did, is she took off all her clothes, thinking that she would be able to help her get to the top. But the problem was she could never get back up that high.
Yeah.
There were lots of questions about how could she have closed the hatch on her own, and the reality is she didn't. The maintenance guy found the hatch open.
Mm-hmm. There was some question about if she would have been strong enough to open the hatch. Mm-hmm. But honestly, in an altered state like that, the strength might not be as big of an issue as you think.
Right. Well, and they said it's about 20 pounds of metal. And really, you only had to just kind of pick it up on one side and slide it.
Yeah. She should be able to do that.
I would imagine that any adult really probably could do that. So they discover her. And see, during this 19 days of her being missing, there were a lot of theories that came up.
Right.
The police called it from internet sleuths. I think it's more like true crime junkies, probably. But let's talk about a few of them, because there were a lot of theories. Of course, one was that she was murdered, and that she was, in fact, being followed by somebody, and that somebody dumped her in the water tank. The police are quite confident that that did not happen, that there just is no evidence of that. There is no footage in that whole hotel of her with anyone else that night.
No.
And there's no evidence on her body to indicate that. And it is just the physical location of those water tanks, how one individual would haul another dead person up there. They just don't see that being a possibility without there being some evidence of injury to her, which there wasn't any. So let's see. So then we have Morbid, or Pablo Vergara. So he is a Mexican guy with a metal band. And at one point, he uploads to the internet a video of himself inside a room at the Cecil Hotel just a couple of days after her body was found. Now, it turns out he was really kind of obsessed with her and her story. He's also like, I don't think a metal is the right death metal. What kind of metal is this? It's really hardcore, scary, like horror music, right?
Yeah.
So then he releases a teaser. So he's in the room in the Cecil Hotel. Then in this video, he also releases a teaser for a new music video, and the song's called "Died in Pain." And the lyrics for the song reference a woman drowning in water. So some people think that's just too much of a coincidence. But keep in mind, this all was posted after she was found. If this was posted before she was found, it might have had more juice, but So the internet went after this dude. They were 100% sure he killed her. They were all over the police to do something. So he was investigated and proved that he was in Mexico recording a new album at the time that she was missing.
Yeah.
Apparently, he still gets death threats. He has tried to take his own life and ended up in a psychiatric hospital over this. He's had a really hard time because people have been absolutely convinced that he hurt her, and there's zero evidence that he did. He just did a stupid thing, frankly. This was a publicity stunt for his music that he did, right after her death, and basically took advantage of her death to try to get some notoriety, and it seriously backfired.
Yeah.
Another theory was that she killed herself. because she did, suffer from some mental health issues. She had a history of being suicidal. And so there was some thoughts that she did this on purpose to harm herself.
Hmm.
I don't feel that from it at all.
I don't either. Yeah, she did do it, but she didn't do it on purpose.
Yeah, she wasn't trying to die. She was trying to hide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my sense too.
Yeah.
Someone from the hotel was in on it. So there's been a lot of conspiracy theory around that somebody in the hotel or the police are in on it. Everyone's lying. It's one of those like, oh, everyone's in on it kinds of things.
Yeah. Sometimes things just are the way they appear to be.
Sometimes they are. And I really do agree with the assessment that the police have made of this, that this was just a tremendously sad accident precipitated by her not taking her meds, which is just unfortunate and can happen and has happened many times, unfortunately. And there were a lot of weird coincidences and things that happened that made people think that, this was something else. One of them was that her death was a copycat of a film. So there's this horror film called Dark Water. And in that film, the body of a girl is found in the water tank on top of an apartment. Like an apartment building, after people noticed that the water looked dark and tasted funny, which is obviously, yucky. And her name was Cecilia. And people thought, well, the hotel is the Cecil Hotel. Maybe that's something, No, it wasn't. It was just a coincidence.
It's just a coincidence, yeah.
And then there's the tuberculosis thing. This thing is super weird. And it is weird. Like, this is really weird, but it is just a coincidence. So, there was an outbreak of tuberculosis on Skid Row, which is not far from the Cecil Hotel, about the time that she went missing. And they thought maybe this had something to do with her death because the specific strain of TB that was going around at the time was called Lam Elisa. I am not kidding. Standing for lipoarabinomanum Lam, enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay.
Wow.
Yeah. And it literally, truly is just a coincidence, but it is a really weird one. People went crazy on that one because that's pretty hard. They were worried that maybe this was a biological weapon. She was a student at the University of British Columbia, which actually does a lot of tuberculosis research. And there was this belief that maybe she had been executed by someone who was using her as warfare, like that she was exposed to this tuberculosis and they were going to give it to a whole bunch of people by putting her in the water. And I mean, it was crazy. She did not have tuberculosis.
Right.
So
that was the
shot that one down. Yeah. But the fact that the tuberculosis is called Lam Elisa is crazy.
Very weird.
Except that, there are tons and tons and tons of abbreviations like that in the world. And so there are going to be overlaps. Yeah. So I don't know, what I get from all of this is that something really tragic happened to Elisa Lam, and it simply was that her mental illness took over and she died accidentally. It's just very sad.
I totally agree. All of the creeping around the hotel, being in places she wasn't supposed to be, acting really weird. She was just continuing. She played that out, clear to the top of that building, and then found a safe place to hide in the water tank.
Yeah.
It is very, very sad. Yeah. And the Cecil Hotel has now closed.
Yes.
The nickname for the Cecil Hotel is Hotel Death.
Yes.
And the Cecil has closed, but if you Google the Cecil Hotel's phone number and call it, there is an answering machine message that is super creepy and weird. So just FYI, if you'd like to creep yourself out, Google their number and look it up and call it. It's weird as hell. So yeah, I don't know why they're still capitalizing on that, considering that they're closed, but they are.
Yeah. And, the Cecil Hotel had a long history of violence and weird deaths and scary stuff happening. And that
serial killers.
serial killers. The
Multiple serial
stalker,
killers stayed there.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, the Night Stalker stayed there.
Mhm.
So, of course, that's going to kind of feed the rumor mill too.
Yeah.
But sometimes the most obvious thing is the truth, and in this case, I truly believe that that's exactly what happened to Elisa Lam, and it's really sad.
What it looks like. Yep. It is really sad. It is. And honestly, I wish there was I don't actually. I mean, there's no other answer for her family, but it doesn't matter at this point. Their daughter's gone.
Right.
I shouldn't say it that way. Of course it matters, but I mean, their daughter's gone. The huge rumor mill doesn't help them.
No.
All of the wild conspiracy theories didn't help them. It didn't help their daughter be found. It didn't help save her life. She had a serious mental health disorder. Nobody knew that better than them, and this is what happened, and it's not that she didn't have meds in her effects that they had cleaned out of the room that she was supposed to be checking out of. Her meds were there.
Oh yeah, she had
her meds. She just wasn't maybe taking them or taking them consistently. But sometimes in mentally ill people, when they're in a state like this, because she needed to be hospitalized.
She did.
When they're in a state like this, they think that they're the sane one, and everybody around them is the crazy one or the dangerous one. And
right.
I would, in my totally unprofessional opinion, guess that not only did she need to be taking her meds, she probably still needed to be hospitalized. Something was
to stabilize.
wrong.
Yeah. Something was wrong. Well, and this is a great amount of stress to place on her to take this big trip all alone. It could easily trigger an episode.
Well, you got to wonder if she was a little manic planning this trip and wanting to do this in the first place.
Yeah.
She must have been, because her family was sure concerned about it, know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So,
well, it's very unfortunate.
It is, but there you have it. You've asked for Elisa Lam. We gave it to you. So,
okay.
Check out the Netflix documentary. It's really good. I think it's very helpful at helping us figure out what's going on here. So this is our second show of the week. We have one more episode tomorrow, which is a cold read I am presenting to Katie. And then, of course, Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific or Mountain, we will have our case update. And on Thursday night at 7 p.m. Mountain, we will have our Psychic Hour. So lots more great programming coming up this week.
Yep. All right. Take care, guys.
Thanks. Have a great day.